Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my picks for my favorite Good for Her horror movies. So I wanted to do this video for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, March is Women's History Month, so I did want to do some videos that had to do with women in horror movies. However, I had no idea that February was Women in Horror Month, so I'm definitely going to try to do something with that next year, but for now we're just going to do it in March since it's Women's History Month anyway. The other reason I wanted to do this specific video was the fact that I had seen one by a creator that I really liked named Nightmare Maven quite a few years back on this same topic, and she had actually done this video because of another creator named Carnage Candy. So props to both of them for this really cool video idea, and I definitely think that you should look up their versions of this as well. So I just have to explain Good for Her horror a little bit. I think it's pretty straightforward. We do have female lead characters in these movies that really go through hell throughout the course of the films. However, they end up getting the last laugh and triumphing over whatever villains they're up against in their subsequent films. So I do think that some of these, maybe other people might not think that they are actually good for her due to the fact that they are, having really dark undertones, or some of these characters end up actually dying at the end of the films. But I'm going to do my best to try to convince you guys why they are actually good for her horror movies. And I do just have to say a quick spoiler warning. Because of the nature of this video, we are going to have to talk about the endings for all of these movies. But I did avoid any movies that have been created in the 2020s, so everything does date before that. So hopefully you guys have already seen these ones, so I don't end up spoiling them for you. But okay, so now we can get into it. The first one that I want to talk about is a very divisive movie, and that is Midsommar. So Midsommar is about our main character, Dani, who has just suffered an unthinkable loss when her sister decides to take her own life, and the method that she chose did make it so their parents died as well. And it's just in the blink of an eye, Dani has lost all the immediate family that she had. And on top of that, she is with a boyfriend named Christian who just genuinely does not like her that much. He is very distant with her before all that stuff went on even, and he had wanted to break up with her. However, he is supposed to be going on a trip to Sweden to attend a midsummer festival, and he reluctantly ends up asking her to go along as well. So when they get there, it's the two of them as well as some friends of theirs, and then some other people that they end up meeting there as well. And they do end up realizing that they are witnessing a pagan cult, and one that does do human sacrifices. So they end up being there for a ritual where some of the elderly members of the Harga will throw themselves off a cliff, and it's definitely very polarizing and just hard for them to see that, especially Dani, after everything she had just gone through recently. And I think that it's still something that intrigues two of the ones in the party, and they are Christian's friend, Josh, I believe. He was planning to do his thesis on the Harga, and then Christian is just very entranced by all of this as well, and he decides that he's going to do his thesis on it too. And I think that it's just something where she sees how they react to it, and it kind of makes her more receptive almost to what is going on. It's not the type of life that she would choose to live, but at the same time, she can kind of understand where they're coming from with it. And she does get some explanation from one of the members of the Harga that does say that this is something that, they all do when they reach this age. So it is just very different for them, obviously, but I think that they kind of come to terms with it at the same time. Now, one thing that happens is they talk about how they sometimes procreate with outsiders, that way they can avoid incest. And so Christian unwillingly does procreate with one of the young women in the Harga. So we're not going to blame him for that because he did not have anything to do with that. It just ended up happening to him, unfortunately. However, Danny does witness that event happening, and she basically has a panic attack, and she is just screaming and crying, and she is with some of the women from the Harga, and they are doing the same thing that she is. They are just being part of that reaction and stuff, screaming along with her. And honestly, I think it's kind of cathartic for her to have someone to really support her, because that's something that she is in desperate need of at this point. Now, toward the end of the film, Danny does become the May Queen, and with that, she does get the chance to decide who will be the final sacrifice at the end of the festival. It would be either a random person from the Harga, or it could be Christian. And she does end up choosing for it to be Christian. And it just ends with all of the people that are being sacrificed. And then she is just covered in a bunch of beautiful flowers, and she has this kind of eerie smile at the very end. And, I think that a lot of people might not feel that this one is a good for her horror movie because she is obviously now a part of a cult and she's probably going to be stuck there at this point. But honestly, I just think that it is maybe better than the alternative for Danny in that moment anyway, because she has just lost all of her immediate family and she didn't have a boyfriend that cared about her, so she essentially had nothing. But when she came to the Harga and, got to know them and stuff, she got to see what it would be like to have the support of them. And I think honestly that she would spend the rest of her days happy with them. And when it came time for her to have aged out as well, I think that she would have, willingly gone up on that cliff and jumped off as well. Now, the next movie that I want to talk about is Ready or Not. So this one is centered on our main character, Grace, who has just married into the Ladomas family, which is a, kind of eccentric family, but they are also very wealthy. And she finds out that it is their tradition to play a game when they have added a new member into their family after a wedding and stuff. And the card that she ends up choosing is for hide and seek. So she ends up going to hide, and she has no idea that the other members of the family are all gathering their weapons and they are supposed to kill her. So she ends up seeing a maid get killed, and they had thought that it was her. So she realizes in that moment that she has a lot more writing on this game than what she had thought initially. And they definitely underestimated her. She's a lot more resourceful than they had thought, so she outlasts way longer than they would have thought, and she's also able to take out some of the members of the family as well. But it gets toward the end of the night, and she gets to see her husband, and they do explain to her like what is going on, and that essentially they're kind of cursed to have to end up sacrificing members of the family in these games if hide and seek comes up in order to just appease the entity, I guess, that is responsible for them becoming wealthy and stuff. And it ends up that the dawn breaks and she is not going to end up getting killed off. And the rest of the members of the family that haven't been killed off earlier in the night end up exploding in extremely gory fashion. And I just think that this one is a really good for her horror movie because there are, a lot of people that have really not so great in-laws. I'm not one of them, thankfully. But I think that a lot of us have dealt with in-laws that are just not the nicest of people. And obviously, this is a super crazy version of, getting revenge on those in-laws. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is You're Next. So, You're Next is about a family that they're celebrating the anniversary of the matriarch and patriarch, and they have decided to have it at their vacation home, and they have um, told all of their kids to come to the event along with their spouses and stuff. So when they are there, they're having their dinner and they start being attacked by some masked assailants from outside, and they start having members of the family get killed off. And over the course of the film, they do find out that the girlfriend of one of the sons, her name is Erin, she had actually grown up on a survivalist compound, so she is way more well equipped than anyone would have expected for a situation like this. She knows how to set booby traps and just defend herself very well. So she is taking out these assailants one by one, really, and it is, you know, later in the night that she finds out that one of the sons and his girlfriend were behind this because they were trying to get everyone else out of the way so they could get the parents' inheritance and quicker. And she ends up taking out both of them, but she does also find out that it was also her boyfriend that was part of it as well. And so she has a decision to make, essentially. She could go off with him and become very wealthy since he's the last one alive and would inherit everything at that point. And she could also, just do the right thing and take him out. And that is obviously what she does end up doing. And I just think it's an awesome moment for sure that she does do the right thing. And it does kind of end where she might, end up getting in some trouble because a first responder ended up getting killed by one of the booby traps that she set. But other than that, I do think that this is a really good example of a good for her horror movie. So the next one that I want to talk about is Jennifer's Body. In Jennifer's Body, we have two best friends, Needy and Jennifer. Needy is the more studious, nerdy one of the two of them, and then Jennifer is just this bombshell, popular girl. And they have been friends since they were very young. It's not necessarily the most healthy friendship, with Jennifer being a lot more dominant in it, but they do still have a lot of, love for each other. And one thing that they decided to do when they were spending time together was go to this bar so they could see a live band perform. However, there is a tragic fire at that show, and Jennifer ends up going off with the members of the band, even though Needy does not like it at all and thinks that she should go home. But Jennifer really does what she wants, so she ends up going with them, and they really were only interested in her because they thought that she was a virgin, and they wanted to sacrifice her so they could try to get their band in a better spot and become famous. And they do sacrifice her and they do start to become famous, but the thing is, she was not a virgin, so she became a succubus who does attack boys primarily. And she just goes after different men that, just really only see her as a sexual object. So I think that that in itself is very good for her. However, this one does go to the point where she ends up attacking Needy's boyfriend and killing him, but she ends up harming Needy a little bit, and that kind of gives her some powers of her own. And Jennifer does end up succumbing to the knife wound that she had gotten from Needy in their altercation. But now that Needy has powers, basically, she ends up going and taking out all the members of the band, just getting that final revenge for Jennifer at the end of the film. And I do think that this one is a good for her horror movie. And yes, Jennifer does end up getting killed off, but I don't think that in that situation there was anything else that would have been able to be done there. But now we can get to the final one that I have on here, and that is Carrie. So Carrie is about a very odd teenage girl who has a religious zealot for a mother, and she is very abusive toward her. And she has not really done her daughter any favors. She's not taught her anything that is important to know. One thing being the fact that she will eventually have a period. And so she has no idea what's happening to her when she does get her period for the first time in gym class, and in the locker room. And she ends up getting very ridiculed by all of the girls, or not all of the girls, but a lot of the girls in her gym class. And um, because of that, a lot of them will get into some trouble and they might end up not being able to go to prom because of it. So that is something that will obviously impact the rest of the film. So one of the girls that had been in that incident but wasn't really that bad in it, she's a lot nicer of a girl. She ends up convincing her, handsome boyfriend to go to the prom with Carrie to try to make amends for that situation. And then we do have the opposite side of that with the girls that were more of the bullies in the situation. We have one of them who decides that she and her boyfriend are going to try to get back at Carrie for the fact that she couldn't go to the prom anymore. So they end up killing one or more pigs, I'm not really sure. And they just collect all of the blood from the pigs. That way they can end up dumping it on Carrie at prom. So they do end up rigging the votes, so Carrie makes it to be the prom queen, and she is up on the stage, and they dump all of that blood on her. However, the one thing that they were not aware of was the fact that Carrie does have telekinetic powers. So after all of the stuff that she has gone through with her classmates ridiculing her and all of the abuse that she's suffered from her mother, she has just had it, and she ends up using those telekinetic abilities against them, and she ends up killing a lot of them at the prom and leaving a lot of them to die there as well. And then when she leaves the prom, she ends up killing the main bully as well as her boyfriend, and she goes home where her mom ends up attacking her, and she ends up killing her mom and then dying as well. So I know that this one is a pretty dark one, and a lot of people might not think it's a good for her one, but I think that everything that Carrie had gone through, I don't really expect a happy ending for her either. And at least she did get to take out all of those people that had wronged her at any point in her life, really. But I want to know what you guys think down below. Did you agree with my choices, or do you think that there would have been some other movies that would be better choices? Let me know all of that in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it and consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel as well as additional horror content. You can also follow me on Letterboxd to see what I have been watching lately and my brief thoughts on any of those films. If you would like either of those, they are linked in my channel description for easy access for you guys. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting my channel so far. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.